Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm Tricia Farley-Bouvier from the 3rd Berkshire District, and I'm joined here with a number of my colleagues. We're here to speak in support of House 140, sponsored by Chairwoman Kahn, which would prohibit state-licensed health providers from subjecting children under the age of 18 to harmful and abusive conversion therapy practices. And if I may, I'd like to give this opportunity to allow my colleagues that are standing behind me, most from the Progressive Caucus, to introduce themselves. So if we could start over here.
Representative Mike Conley from Cambridge and Somerville.
Representative Maria Robinson from Framingham.
Representative Denise Provo, Somerville.
Representative Natalie Blay, First Franklin District.
Representative Jim Hawkins, Attleboro.
Representative Tommy Vitolo, Brookline.
Representative Liz Miranda, Dorchester and Roxbury.
Representative Sean Garbely, Arlington.
Representative Mindy Dom, Amherst, Pelham, and 1 precinct in Granby.
Representative Paul Broder from Melrose.
Lindsay Sabadosa, First Hampshire.
Thank you so much to you, both you, Chairwoman, and to this entire committee. What a fabulous turnout this is by both committee members and the general public. As you said, Madam Chair, there's a great interest in this bill. We have done work on this bill over many, many years. My first hearing that I ever had as a legislator 7 years ago, this was on the agenda. And when I first saw it, like in written form, I thought, well, why are we telling parents what they can do? This doesn't seem quite right. And then I came to the hearing and I listened. And to be honest, I was appalled. I was appalled that we allow this practice to happen to the children of the Commonwealth. And I am joined, flanked by 2 colleagues who would like to give their testimony, including some personal testimony. So I'm going to turn it over now to Representative Jack Lewis.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairs, for this opportunity. This is an issue that hits home. It hits home for me, and I know it hits home for so many of us. Prior to being elected, as many of you know, I had the great honor of starting an organization that served LGBTQ middle and high school youth. And prior to being elected for 6 years, that was my life. Day after day, week after week, working with young people to make sure they had all the supports in the world imaginable so that they could not only survive adolescence, but ideally thrive in adolescence as well. And I can tell you, with all the stresses kids experience today, some of those stresses we experienced way back in the day when we were kids ourselves still exist. Stress around parents and siblings and friends and your first job and the upcoming test. Those all still exist. But kids today have things in their lives we didn't have. Social media, for example, and making sure that they present themselves to the world in a way that their friends and their colleagues understand. But I can tell you, for the kids we worked with, for the young people I had the honor of working with, there was one more thing in their lives that just added to the complexity of what it meant to be an adolescent. They were questioning who they were. They were questioning who they were at their core, who they were attracted to. And with that, there were a lot of fears. Will my friends accept me? Will I be bullied at school? But I can tell you there was one fear that was almost universal among all of those youth, a fear that was greater than the great fear of bullying or being rejected by friends. And it was the idea that those people in their lives, their loved ones, their parents, those who claimed to love them more than anyone else on the planet, their major fear was that those people were going to reject them. Or maybe even worse, because we live in one of the 35 states that still allows licensed conversion therapy, that their parents, who claimed to love them, were going to force them to go through a therapy to change who they, at their core, knew they were. So today, I implore you to hear the testimony before you, hear the experiences of young people and adults who have been forced to go through this therapy while they were young themselves. And I ask you, on behalf of the hundreds of youth that I once worked with, for the thousands of youth in our Commonwealth who were just trying to figure it all out while maintaining their grades and maintaining their friendships, I implore you to join the 15 other states in banning this barbaric practice. You may hear today from opponents to this ban, and I just want to remind you that we aren't the first state. Unfortunately, we're not the first. 15 have already gone down this path, and while I would have rather been the first, I want us to make sure we're the next. This does nothing to infringe upon First Amendment rights. It does nothing to prevent religious leaders from counseling in a way that's outside of professional state licensing. And it does nothing to prevent adults from seeking these therapies if they so wish. This is only a bill addressing young people, licensed therapy here in the Commonwealth. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chairwoman Khan and Chairwoman Chang Diaz. The testimony I'll be giving is pretty emotional for me and cuts really close to home, so I will be reading my testimony, and I appreciate the patience. I am here in support of House 140, an act relative to abusive practices to change sexual orientation and gender identity in minors. As the mother of a transgender son, a public health social worker for the last 18 years, and an elected official, I am proud to be one of 117 House and Senate sponsors of this very important bill. My son Camden is talented, caring, and bright. He's a 17-year-old at Acton Boxborough High School. Like any other teenager, Cam has explored a myriad of interests and ways of expressing himself, from the types of music he listens to the styles of clothing he wears, to the sports he enjoys, and the ways that he dedicates his free time. But Cam is also unlike many other teenagers. If you ask any adult who knows him, from mentors at church to family friends, they will tell you that he has grown into one of the most self-assured, confident, and mature teens they know. And as his mom, I am here to tell you that Cam is one of the bravest people that I will ever have the honor of knowing and loving. In the fall of 2016, Cam came out to me and his brother as a transgender male. He shared his truth knowing that he faced the possibility of being rejected by the family he loves and trusts the most. He was honest with himself, he was honest with his family, and he has been honest with friends, members at church and school, and with the students he counsels at camp. The type of honesty that Cam has displayed as a young person ought to be encouraged, admired, and emulated by others. Conversion therapy is the opposite of all of these honorable, brave, and admirable values that my son practices and possesses. Conversion therapy is based on lies that damage individuals and their relationships with themselves and with others. Conversion therapy is an inhumane practice that denies individuals of their core selves, their true identities, and robs the world of their beautiful, authentic selves. Conversion therapy is fundamentally an abusive practice and must be banned immediately. When Cam came out, I immediately kicked into mama bear mode to protect him from those who would try to shame him, deny him his humanity and his right to exist, or try to force him to change it to someone he is not. I worked proactively to find him a gender-affirming therapist and have been taking him to Fenway Health for the last 2 years for his health care. As a public health social worker who has worked with gender and sexual minorities and vulnerable teens, I know the detrimental impacts that shaming and denying one's humanity can have on a person. Higher rates of depression, suicide, homelessness, anxiety, drug use, and STDs. However, my work has also focused on protective factors. Kids and teens who have loving adults in their lives, adults who support them with respect, kindness, and justice, and embrace their full humanity, are kids and teens who are more likely to grow up into healthy, productive adults. Every single child in our state deserves love and support, and to have their humanity affirmed and celebrated rather than shamed and judged. Every one of our children and teens deserves to receive health care and therapeutic treatment that is ethical, encourages self-exploration and self-acceptance, and affirms their core identity. As elected officials, it is our duty to uphold the Constitution and to protect all children from abusive practices that damage the soul and lead to life-altering adverse consequences. I ask for a favorable vote on House 140. Thank you.
Well, with those two testimonies, Madam Chair, those are pretty powerful testimonies about what's happening to real people in our community. And one thing that really struck me about the representative's testimony is that we know that when we deny somebody's sexual orientation, it is a public health risk. It is a public health risk. One thing that struck me as I listened to testimony over the years about this is the position that parents are in. We're in a new world here as parents, trying to navigate what's out there. It wasn't our experience as kids growing up necessarily. Things were kind of, more in the closet, as they say. And so parents are looking to professionals for help. What do I do in this situation? I don't know anybody else in this situation. How can I get help? And when they turn to a professional, they think they're getting sound therapy. And then there are those out to do harm. And that is when the state has to step in. And this is what this bill does. This bill and its intentions is why the American Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association, the American Psychological Association, the National Association of Social Workers, and dozens of other leading medical, mental health, and human service organizations universally condemn conversion therapy and find these attempts to change a minor's sexual orientation or gender identity are both unnecessary, they're ineffective, and they're harmful. It's important for the people of this committee to understand that this bill does not apply to adults. If you are an adult and you have made the decision for any reason that you think that something might be wrong with you and you would like to make a change, then you are free as an adult to seek this kind of therapy. This also doesn't apply to religious institutions. These are about state licensed therapists. So this idea that the state is trying to tell people what they can do and what they can be is false. It's a false narrative being peddled. This bill seeks first and foremost to protect children, and it also seeks to protect the parents. Madam Chair, I cannot thank you enough for the leadership, the persistent leadership you have shown on this issue over very many years. This is the time we are going to pass this session. Thank you so much.